Welcome to the studio, guys. I'm here with none other than the Dan Olsen, franchising master. And today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk about one of your biggest failures. So Dan, obviously franchising has incredible potential to grow somebody's wealth. What are some bad experiences that you've had and what have you learned from that?
Oh, well, that's a great question. You know, it's not perfect. No business is perfect, and it's difficult to find something that's going to succeed 100% of the time. Even McDonald's has failures. I've seen failures with those. But I remember when I lived in Arizona a few years ago, and I decided to jump into this new franchise concept, an emerging franchise. It was more in the food industry. It was more of the catering side. And my friend had experience in catering. He loved food. I thought, okay, I'm busy. I'm working over here as a CEO in another company, but I will go into this with my friend because of his capability. We started working in this franchise. We started building it, and it started going great. And he was excited, and we started getting all these accounts, and things were working very, very well. Then we started to have some hiccups with the corporate office out of Los Angeles, and they were not supporting us the way we needed to see the support. And so he started to falter a little bit, and he started to lose some of the confidence because he was running it. A very capable guy. But we lost confidence because the franchisor was not providing us with the things that we needed to have, and some of the marketing systems were not the greatest. Between running out of capital and not having the franchisor do the support that we needed to have, that we're accustomed to with most of the franchises that we have, we ended up folding the doors. He lost quite a bit more money than I did, but nevertheless, we lost money, and it wasn't a good experience. But you know what? I learned a lot from that. I learned to look for the franchise company that's going to be solid and the type of support that we're going to need to have, so we know what those things are now. And this made it very, very clear in what you need to look for in a franchise company that's going to support you and the people behind it.
So I'm assuming you lost probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in this. I know you're kind of tentative about it, but it's a massive amount of money, right?
Well, between the two of us, yeah, it's probably over $500,000 that was lost in that particular venture. But
wow.
He was the bigger partner in it, so I didn't quite lose as much. But yeah.
And were there any like red flags that you could have noticed earlier on, like that you would notice now if you were looking into getting into franchising? What can people do to like avoid this kind of trap?
You know, a lot of times what clouds our analysis and our thought pattern and even our emotions is we see this exciting thing, and we're so excited about this particular franchise and this business, and so we get tied to it emotionally. You got to set the emotions aside. And we got tied to this one really emotionally because it was the food and the concept, and we loved the food and what it was doing. But what we overlooked is when we were at the corporate offices in Los Angeles, and we looked at the people, and we looked at their attitudes, and we looked at the way they treated people. We disregarded that. We saw that. We saw the way they treated their employees. We saw the way they treated other franchisees. That should have been a big red flag for us. But because we had the emotional tie to the business, we overlooked that. And so what you always have to bring yourself back to is the numbers and, of course, how are the people treating their people.
So ultimately it was just the emotions and you got caught up, and maybe it's easier to do that in a food franchise than other franchises just because it's so palatable. Like you just immediately have this reaction. But what's more important than the product is almost the actual business behind it. And are these people going to support you? Do they respect you like they should? And ultimately it was a huge red flag that you just kind of blew past because of that emotional tie.
Yeah, you know, I have another example of that too, and I think about it. It was another when I was with Fantastic Sam's Hair Salons that we built that front. It was already created, of course, but I stepped in midstream and we helped build it into the world's largest hair care chain. Back then, when we started working with a lot of individuals, most people got into this franchise. They didn't say, hey, I want a hair care franchise. You don't think about that. Unless you're a stylist, then you might think about, hey, I would like to own my business someday. But what we typically did is we sold it to people, investors who wanted to invest and still keep their job and still keep their other businesses and use this as an investment to succeed even in a bigger way, because they were not having to spend a lot of time in the business because most of them were not stylists. But here's what happened in one particular case. I remember she was a stylist, and she came in and she wanted, okay, tell me about Fantastic Sam's. I have this funds I want to invest, and I think this would be a good business for me because I'm already a stylist. Even though she already had the experience. So we're thinking, this is a slam dunk, right? So we kept trying to show her the numbers and show how it would work, and looking at the logistical and analytical side of things, that didn't appeal to her. And she was still questioning whether she wanted to make the investment. Until one day, I took her inside of one of the Fantastic Sam's hair salons. And she started looking around and she said, oh, this is literally fantastic. She wanted the business. She said, okay, I'm in. Because she felt emotionally tied to the business. She felt it when she walked in the door, but she paid no attention to the numbers, no attention to the important things that would allow her to be very, very successful as a business. So she was thinking emotionally to buy into the business, where most of the time we want some emotion involved because we've got to be passionate about what we're doing, at least grow the passion for our business. But really what happened is she didn't pay attention to the numbers. So what I would suggest, anytime you look at a business or numbers, emotions are good to have their side, but you want to make sure the numbers are clean and you check those out and make sure that that system is in place so that you can follow those numbers.
The product is clearly important, and it helps people, even the franchise person, get excited about the business opportunity. Mm-hmm. And it's that excitement that's going to carry you through all the hard times, right?
Exactly.
But you also want to make sure that the business side is taken care of and that the owners know what they're doing and are going to give you the support that you need. So any final thoughts on, I mean, obviously you lost, $500,000. How did you recover from that? And what would you say to our viewers going forward?
That's just petty cash for me.
Yeah.
Not really. No, back then, that was a significant loss. It was a huge amount. But you know what? I didn't give up, because I saw the power of franchising. But at that time, I also was invested in other franchises. So I had the diversification. So I also, at that time, I did have a Fantastic Sam's Hair Salon master franchise in San Francisco, while I was living in Arizona. So I had that coming in. I also had some Massage Envies back east. So I had those coming in as well. So because I was diversified, it really didn't affect me as much. So the diversification is huge in the franchise world to offset any potential losses. So of course, franchises have that 80 to 90% success rate. So chances are you are going to have a successful experience with that. But you want to look at the things we've already talked about to make sure that you can succeed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. Smash that like button down below if you liked the video. And if you have any questions about how to get into franchising, there's a link in the description. Click that and you can get in contact with Dan's team. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one.